Mm.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Kim Quinn with SensCy, and I'd like to start off today by welcoming you and thanking you for spending a part of your day with us. We're glad to have you here. And I also want to recognize that we have some of our SensCy clients on the line. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us as well. So, before we get started and I introduce David and we get into today's content, I just wanted to cover a couple quick housekeeping items. So first, today's presentation is being recorded, and so we will make that recording available to you after today's session. And we'll also leave some time for Q&A at the end, but the Q&A or the chat is open throughout today's presentation. So any questions that you have that come up as you're listening to David present today, please feel free to enter them into the chat or the Q&A at any time. And so today's conversation, of course, is focused on cybersecurity risks that are posed by our suppliers. So we're going to be focused today on what that means and what business leaders can do about it. So to advance us here to the next slide, let me introduce to you all David Behen, for those of you who don't know him. David is our co-founder and chief strategy officer here at SensCy. And some background for David. So David brings more than 20 years of executive leadership experience across both public and private sectors, including his time serving as a CIO for the state of Michigan and also as the VP and CIO at Lazy Boy. David has led large-scale cybersecurity and risk programs, and he has also been recognized 5 times on the CIO 100 list for excellence in IT leadership. So, David, I'll ask you to say a quick hello and give everyone a brief overview of SensCy and the work that you do.
Great. Thanks, Kim. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, again, thanks for spending some time with us today. SensCy is, I'm one of the co-founders of SensCy, and our mission really is to reduce business risk. We look at ourselves as your trusted guide to sensible cyber in your organization, and we help organizations of all sizes. Um, and you can see some of the things that we do. Is to help organizations reduce risk is one of the things that we trademark and we think is really powerful is our SensCy score. It's a proprietary algorithm that we've built based off the National Institute of Standard Technology framework, and it's 39 questions. It's like your credit score for your company or your organization. And so it's on a scale from 0 to 1,000. We want everyone over 800, just like your personal credit score. And because you have taken time to watch this webinar, to view this webinar, everyone gets if you haven't already done it, everyone gets a free SensCy score. Okay, so we'll give you that information in our follow-up emails. You also, we believe that at SensCy you should have a human touch, and so technology is all around. Artificial intelligence is everywhere. We also believe there still has that human touch, and so we provide a dedicated cyber risk advocate, sort of like an extension of your team when you become a client of SensCy. And our sensible cyber solution is a wraparound cybersecurity solution. It's a best practice, allows for organizations to really reduce the risk. And as I said, it's based off the National Institute of Standard Technology framework. Here is the SensCy score. Okay. Like I said, it's a proprietary algorithm. It scales 0 to 1,000. It takes about 30 minutes to do. It's absolutely free. We'd love to have you do one with us, and we'll be reaching out after the presentation to give you this information. But let's really get into what we're here for today, all right? So today's agenda, you can't do a speech, a presentation, or anything anymore without having some scary stats. So we're going to have a few of those. I'm going to talk about 4 real life supplier breaches that we see, that we've seen. How your suppliers introducing risk into your organization. Why we believe the current approach is not the best. It's inefficient. And then I want to give you a sensible, SensCy stands for sensible cyber. I want to give you a sensible approach forward. And then I believe that in any webinar, you should be walking away with something. So we're going to give you a 30, 60-day action plan to walk away with.
Great.
So here's some of the scary stats. Every 38 seconds, a supplier, vendor, or consultant experiences a cyber attack. That's not my stat. That's you can see that's Cybersecurity Ventures. I just want, as we all know, cybersecurity is all around us. Okay, and it's attacking us on a daily basis. But this is a scary stat. Every 38 seconds, we're seeing a cyber attack. Just under, I just wanted to put this quote, this data point out there to understand the magnitude of what we're looking at. The average cost of a third-party cyber breach in 2025 rose to $4.8 million. That's real money, right? And we're seeing these costs go up. And so that's a trend that we're keeping an eye on. Data breaches involving third parties have doubled in the last year. So they've gone from 15% to 30%. We believe, and we're still looking at the data, but we believe it's actually going to get even worse in 2026 and 2027. I was saying a lot last year that we're all going to hear about third party risk as one of your highest threats. And the data is starting to prove that out. So 2026, 2027, you're going to see an increase in these third party attacks and breaches. And as you know, people joining this call today or watching this video is because you're a cyber practitioner or you're someone in your organization, a leader in your organization that you have focus on cybersecurity. And so my point on this slide is, hey, if we don't broaden our focus to look at the supply chain, who might be our weakest link in our supply chain, we're kind of missing something. And so we got to make sure that, a lot of organizations have really fortified themselves. And now, you think you're feeling pretty good. And now you got to make sure that we're looking at the whole ecosystem, your suppliers, your partners, your vendors. And could they potentially be the weakest link in your chain? So we can't forget about those. Okay. So now what I want to do, and I want to be very clear on this point too, there is zero cyber shaming. As a CIO of a long time and working with lots of organizations, and starting being one of the co-founders of SensCy, we understand that cybersecurity is a business risk. And you can do a lot of things to protect yourselves, and sometimes it just happens. So there's no cyber shaming. And organizations are on their own path when it comes to cybersecurity. Okay. But there are a couple that I wanted to highlight that are third party risks, actual breaches. And the funny part is, you know, Comcast, I use Comcast. I have insurance just like Farmers Insurance. I have Power School because my kids went to school. I still have kids in school. Um, but I don't have a Jaguar Land Rover yet. Maybe I will. I don't know, but that's a goal. But let me talk a little bit about um, the cyber reality. Okay, let's talk a little bit about these. So the first one, I'm going to start with Jaguar Land Rover. So this happened in September 2025. Scattered Spider was the ransomware group that did this. What they did is they exploited a third party software uh, and got into the Land Rover through the third party software. And this was a big one because this forced weeks long production shutdowns, and it ended up costing Jaguar and their Land Rover approximately $2.5 billion. Yes, B with a billion with a B. And it also had an impact on their brand and reputation. And we're going to get into that a little bit later on. But that was a big one. When you think about uh, Comcast and Farmers Insurance, what happened there was, like, for example, with Farmer Insurance, they had a third party, they had given their data to a third party organization. That organization was breached and took the Farmers Insurance data. Um, and it was really the Farmers Insurance customer records. Approximately 1 million customers were impacted by this. Farmers did go out and they offered um, 24 months of credit protection for everybody. But yeah, so farmers hit by a third party, right? Same with Comcast. Comcast got hit by, they again gave their data to a trusted partner, um, and that trusted partner was breached. They took the Comcast customer data. I think it was approximately like 235,000. Um, Comcast actually, after this, they took some remediation steps. They were fined. They had a fine, I think, of approximately $1.5 million. And then they actually started putting in a more robust uh, third-party supplier risk program. So, they had this issue and they decided the after action was to get better. Power School was one of those, another third-party breach where if you had kids who went to school, they may have been part of this. It was 60 million students, 9 million teachers, personal data, personally identifiable information was taken. We call it PII. And what happened is the bad actors got in through a third party contractor's credentials and got in there. Um, that was a big one as well. So you can see great organizations um, all breached through kind of a third party. And so you can see that um, they may have fortified their own organizations, but it was that weakest link. It was their supply chain that really caused these problems.
There we go.
There you go. Thanks, Kim. Um, and to kind of bring it home a little bit, a breach at one supplier, and we talked about four, right? We just talked about four. A breach at one supplier can cripple your operations. We just talked about Jaguar and Land Rover. It took their production down a couple weeks. Imagine if that was your organization. What would you do, right? Major financial loss. We're going to talk about, Jaguar again, $2.5 billion, Comcast, $1.5 million. The loss that because you're down or because you're paying for credit protection or you're paying the fines, it can be a major financial blow to any organization. And then also, and when I was at Lazy Boy, I talked about this all the time. We had an iconic brand. Lazy Boy was like Coke, Kleenex. It's a wonderful organization. And I always was worried about our brand. And so everyone on this call today, in this meeting, in this discussion with us, you have an incredible organization. You have an incredible brand. You want to protect that. And so, if you get breached, they could damage your reputation and your brand. And then as you think about your insurance too, having a breach, having any kind of attack like this, you may see your insurance premiums increase. So there's that long-term cost to this as well. But yeah, so one simple breach at a supplier can cause these problems. So now what I want to talk about a little bit is what we believe is four ways suppliers can introduce cyber risk to your organization. The first one is when you have suppliers integrated into your network. So what I want you to think about in this one is think about maybe your finance system, your HR system, um, and just think about how those are integrated into your network. And if that supplier has a vulnerability or unpatched areas in their software, and they get exploited, and they get into they find their way, they go lateral inside there, and then they come into your network. Happens a lot. As a matter of fact, I do tabletop exercises for a lot of our clients, and I have done them for years. And this is the scenario I use, that it's like tightly integrated into your third parties, tightly integrated into your network. And the bad actors get into your third party, and then they move laterally into your network, and they exploit you as well. So that's the number one way as suppliers get in, is through by being so integrated into your network. The second one is white labeling, and I think about it like white labeling this. White labeling is when you purchase a software that you put into your organization, you kind of rebrand it for your own. I'm going to give you an example of that, right? In May of 2025, May of 2025, um, there was a breach of a major third party customer service provider. Now, this customer service provider had giant clients. And I'll give you a couple names: Adidas, Air France, KLM. Um, when that third party that was white labeled into their organizations was breached and went down through a ransomware attack, it shut all their customer support off because they were so reliant on that third party that they white labeled into their organization. So white labeling can have dramatic impacts on you as well. The third way is kind of critical to your operations. So we talked about Jaguar, right? Clearly, that was a huge thing, critical to their operations, stop their productions. I know of organizations, manufacturing organizations, who have had key, uh, they've had key suppliers who produce and provide key components to their product. They get hit with ransomware, they're down. Um, and so it has a dramatic impact on your production and manufacturing floor. I know there's a major appliance organization that had that happen not too long ago, where the key component to their core product couldn't be manufactured fast enough. They got hit with ransomware, they were down, and so when that main supplier couldn't get the product to the major appliance provider, it really had a dramatic impact on their sales, and you can just see how it's so critical to their operation that they could not continue to move forward. I also want to talk about a couple other ones real quick. So United Healthcare. I think people probably remember that one. It may have even impacted you. Because if you went to a pharmacy or something, they may not have been able to fill your subscription. So United Healthcare had a subsidiary called Change Healthcare. Change Healthcare does approximately 15 billion, yes, billion transactions annually. When Change Healthcare was breached, it stopped and had a dramatic impact on pharmacies, hospitals. I even know of a small psychologist office that had trouble getting their billings done. It had a dramatic impact on not only their organization, but organizations across the country. So this very critical to their operations, and it went down. Okay. Their third party was very critical and it went down. It brought these organizations almost to their knees. And the last one is they have your data. So think about how I talked a little bit about farmers. I talked a little bit about Comcast, where they actually gave the data to these trusted partners, and these trusted partners were breached and their data was stolen. So you got to think about those third parties and how you're giving them your data. They're your trusted partners, but how are you making sure they're not your weakest link? Right. So yeah, that's the fourth way, is that bad actors can do this, is by getting access to your data. So now, we ask the question, so how do businesses manage supplier risk today? So let's go into that a little bit. I would say that the current framework in most cases is chaotic, it's inefficient. As you see in this graph, it's usually what we see is a lot of manual work where somebody's sending out questionnaires. And I can tell you I know of organizations where they send out these manual questionnaires and they get about a 30% return rate. And they'll ask me, why only 30%? And it's because, well, the 30% are the 30%, they're the ones who are going to answer those questionnaires honestly and confidently and send them back to you because they're doing everything you asked them to do. The other 70%, they may have either lost them, don't know how to answer the questions, or quite honestly, aren't going to send them back to you because you're spending a lot of money with them as a supplier and or service provider, and they're not doing what you asked them to do. And they don't have a strong cybersecurity posture. And they're rolling the dice that um, you're not going to spot out of them. So the current framework is difficult. It's inefficient and it's chaotic. Again, so why isn't it working? One, it's reactive. A lot of times, cyber expectations are not shared up front. right? It's kind of a thing that they react to at the end. It's inaccurate. A lot of times it only reflects a single point in time. Um, and we see some programs where it's assessments only and no monitoring, and we see some that are monitoring only, no assessments. We believe there's a better way. Okay. And then it is inefficient. What we'll see is it's manual, hard to administer, very hard to administer. And then a lot of times organizations only look at their biggest vendors or the vendors that, they take their first 100, but they're not looking at their tier two and tier three vendors, which often sometimes are your weakest link. And also, how do you get a view on them when you're doing it manually? It's very inefficient to see them all at once, right? Then there's no single pane of glass to review your cyber risk. So we believe at SensCy there's a new approach, a better approach, right? And it benefits up and down the supply chain. The first one is we we think you should do cyber risk assessments. Conduct them at least twice annually. Get a baseline. Where are you? Right? Where are you when we start? And then 6 months later, where are you? Where is that provider? Where is that supplier? Has their cyber posture gone up? Are they safer? Thus making you safer. We believe that you should have persistent monitoring of external vulnerability scans. We want to see your critical high, medium, low vulnerabilities, and we want to make sure that those are being remediated. We also want to see if your supplier or your partner has a presence on the dark web, because if they have, maybe something's happened or something is happening. We also really firmly believe that you should look at each vendor individually, but you should also have a single pane of glass, a dashboard that shows you all of your vendors, all of your suppliers. You know who's the highest risk. Who's what we would call who's green, who's yellow, who's red, and then have a good understanding of every one of those. We believe that's the appropriate way to do this. And then this isn't an IT issue. This is a business issue. This is a risk management issue. So having that dialogue, having that executive dialogue, doing those executive briefings, so you can talk to your organization about, yeah, we're doing this from a cybersecurity perspective. Now we're doing this from a risk management perspective. We're really looking at all of our suppliers, and are they our weakest link? So this is a new approach. This is how SensCy approaches this, and we think it's a really kind of uh, a good new approach to helping organizations become more safe. Now, a lot of people say, "Man, this is overwhelming. I don't know where do I start? What do I do?" Well, we have something called the four box approach. Okay, because it can be overwhelming if you're not doing anything currently and you have hundreds or thousands of vendors. How do you take this? What do you do next? Well, we think it's the four box approach, which is we want you to create your list of providers. We want you to look at what type of supplier partner they are, and place them in one of these four boxes that you see on the screen. Are they suppliers with your data? Are they white label considerations with that supplier? Are they tier one critical suppliers that provide a critical product or service to your organization? And are they suppliers with system access? So you look at your suppliers, you want to think about where do they fall? And then you can start strategically looking at how to protect yourself. Which ones are your priorities? Priority ones, your priority twos, right? And I want you to think about this. It's not always the ones you're spending the most money with. We were doing a conversation with the executive suite of a university, and we were talking about everything, from food service to, core curriculum service softwares and things like that. And the president, a soft-spoken gentleman, raised his hand and said, "Well, one of my most important ones is elevators." And he said, "Because if our elevator systems go down and we can't get them back up due to a ransomware attack or something on one of our third-party suppliers, I can't get students, faculty, visitors with special needs to their classrooms, to their labs, to their dorms. And that's a real problem for me." So again, they may not be spending the most money on that, but that was one of the most impactful to that organization. And that's how you need to consider and think about this. And this is not just an IT issue. This is an issue that executives, IT, procurement, legal, your business division leaders need to really be focused on, because they have a bunch of vendors too. Think about marketing, how many vendors in marketing you may have. suppliers and marketing. Don't leave them out of the conversation, right? Because they're critical to your organization, and we want to make sure we're looking at your suppliers holistically and not just through the lens of IT. So you're asking yourself, you're asking yourself, what immediate actions should I take? Well, I really believe you took some time today to attend this webinar. I think you should walk away with something. And so over the next 36 to 90 days, here's what I highly recommend you do. Develop that list of suppliers from your business units. Again, I just went over a little bit of that, but it's not an IT issue. Obviously, IT has suppliers and vendors, right? I was talking to an organization just this past week when they said they had approximately 200 software vendors in IT, large organization. They have 200 suppliers just in IT. And I reminded them that's great. And we should prioritize those too. You should do the four box. But I also think you should be engaging the rest of the organization. Let's get that list. Let's get that list of suppliers from your business units as well and create that comprehensive list. Let's identify which box in the four box it falls into. Use this risk-based approach to identify your most impactful suppliers. Again, I appreciate the slide saying this, the most impactful suppliers is what we're looking for. And don't forget about your tiers twos and your tier threes, because they can introduce risk into your organization just as easily as tier ones. This is something that a lot of organizations are starting to do, but a lot still are not doing it yet. In my past, I've done this with the procurement and legal organizations that I was a CIO at. You want to create language that you put into your contracts and your procurement agreements that state that they're going to, as a part of doing business with your company, that they're going to be part of your third party supplier risk management program, and that they have to have a cyber program consistent with whatever your industry standard may be. Maybe it's the National Institute of Standard Technology Framework, which is the gold standard, okay, for organizations in the United States. But it's important that you put that in there so the expectations are very clear with your suppliers early on in your partnership. And then last, how do you identify how you're going to start to implement a third-party supplier risk program? And that is because you now have your list, you put it in a four box, you put in that agreement. Now, how do you implement it? These are the things that we want, at SensCy, we can help you do that. So that's what I want you to do over the next 30, 60 days.
Great.
So I think everyone should walk away with something. So what we're going to do is we're going to send you this presentation. It's going to allow you to download that four box. Okay, start that process. But if you have any immediate supplier concerns, please engage with us at SensCy. We think this third-party risk management program is different than the others. We think it's unique and we think it's very effective. Engage with us. If you have a couple suppliers that you're like, oh my God, what do I do? Reach out to us. We're going to help you do that. Reach out directly to me. You see my email, you see our website. Please reach out to me. Happy to walk through this process with you. Happy to talk to you about what next steps you need to take. But we're here for you. We want to help you become a safer organization. And so let's start looking at your suppliers and your partners, and let's engage with them to make your organization safer. Kim, I'll turn it back to you.
Yes, great stuff. Thank you, David. Well, we do have some time to take some questions. And so I'm looking now. I don't think that we've received any so far. So I'd ask that if you have a question, please use the Q&A feature, which you can find under the three dots that say more, or the chat feature. Feel free to chat us in your questions. And as we wait for those to come in, listening to you speak about kind of the process of engaging your suppliers and, conducting assessments, doing the persistent monitoring. And um, I can see how the organization that is engaging SensCy, or conducting these things in-house, how they are able to get that data and help themselves be safer. But I'm curious about the supplier at the end of the
Oh
chain
yeah.
here. So how does this program or this new approach help to make the supplier safer? I guess would be my question.
So yeah, so what we do with our clients at SensCy is so we'll do the SensCy score for our client, right? For our client will give us a list of their providers, their suppliers. We then go to those suppliers, we do their SensCy score. They get their SensCy score, which is like their credit score for cybersecurity. They then also get a scorecard that shows where where they're strong, where they have opportunities. So immediate, and we share that with our client and we share that with their supplier because we want their supplier to understand what their cyber posture is. And then we're running external vulnerability scans and dark web scans persistently. And we not only share those with our client, but we share those with their supplier. Because, excuse me, the goal is to make the supplier safer, more safe, and so because if they're more safe, then our client's more safe. And so it kind of flips it on its head a little bit. Not many of these programs, it's usually one way, but we want to make it so we want the suppliers become safer and our clients become safer. And then, why not, right? And there's a win-win-win in this.
Right. It kind of extends it throughout the
Yeah,
supply chain.
yeah.
So okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And we did get another question. This is a good one. Can you please explain why some of the smaller suppliers might actually be a bigger risk to us?
Yeah, so some of the smaller suppliers, and what we would see is, and again, everyone's on their own journey when it comes to cybersecurity, right? Everyone wants to build their product, sell their product, live a great quality of life. What we see is some of the smaller providers maybe some of the smaller suppliers maybe taking a shortcut when it comes to cybersecurity. So when we do their SensCy score, we can see what their cyber posture is. And they may have more holes than some of the larger tier ones providers who have spent a lot of money and they have a lot of, you know, uh, they have a lot of personnel. They have, cyber teams where some of the smaller suppliers and providers may not have that. And so we want to make sure that even if when we do their SensCy score and we're doing their vulnerability scans, dark web scans, we want to make sure we're working with them so we can identify where they need to increase their cyber posture. But that's why I think some of the smaller providers may have more exposure because they just might be a little bit behind on their own cyber posture, which introduces risk to their clients and customers.
That makes sense. Okay, excellent. Thank you. I think this is a good place for us to go ahead and wrap. I'd like to thank everyone again for joining us today. In follow-up, you can expect to receive an email from us with a link to a recording of today's presentation. And as David mentioned, there's some follow-up resources for you, and we'll make sure to share those as well. But from everyone here at SensCy, we appreciate your time so much. And thank you again for spending a part of your day with us. And we hope that the rest of it is fantastic.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.
Thanks, David. Thank you. Bye.